So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Leo lesson, the fifth lesson of the Zodiac Signs course, or the Zodiac Signs module. And tonight, I'm going to be focusing on the Zodiac sign of Leo, which is the Zodiac sign that begins around about when the Sun enters Leo, around about July the 21st every year until August the 22nd. But I thought I'd start this evening's lesson off with a quote by Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman general and philosopher. And he says this, it really does bring about a kind of spiritual perspective, which is quite nice to think about. So, contemplate the courses of the stars as one should do that revolves along with them. Consider frequently the connection of all things in the universe and their relation to each other. All things are in a manner intermingled with each other and are therefore mutually friendly. For one thing comes in due order after another by virtue of local movements and of the harmony and unity of the whole. The universe, compact of all things, is one. Through all things runs one divinity. And when you just take things, you take that slowly, maybe listen to that again when you watch the videos later on. And it's a lovely thing to really contemplate, because we are in the universe. We are part of it. And that really is one of the great perspectives of astrology, is that you get the art of learning divinity, actually, because when you become one with the world that we are in and part of, rather than saying objectively or standing outside of it, it's a very subjective thing. And therefore, that's why I'm here to talk about Leo being the second fire sign of the zodiac, because Leo is very subjective. All fire signs are very subjective. Leo is particularly so. So Leo is the zodiac sign of the lion. So the constellation of the lion, you can see, and it actually does look like a lion sitting on its haunches in the sky, the constellation of Leo. And it is the sign of the king or the president. So it's a fixed, fiery sign. And I'm going to get more into the idea of what fixity is later on. It's the second fixed sign of the zodiac. It's the second fire sign as well. So the first fixed sign of the zodiac was Taurus. So Leo has qualities that are ever so slightly similar to Taurus in some ways, and we'll get into those later. And it's a fire sign, which means it has qualities similar to Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac and the first fire sign. So one of the keynotes of Leo is the idea of glory. One of the watchwords of Leo is faith, and its ruler is the sun, which gives all the light. So it has mystical gems, ruby and diamond. Its color is orange. Its metal is gold. Its physical manifestation is radiation. And its mental manifestation is comprehension. So when the color of orange, and you have the sunsets, look at all the different shades you see in the sky. And all of those can actually be sort of linked or related to qualities of Leo-ness. So you get all the different oranges and sometimes reds and purples and all that, of course, but the orange being the central feature of a sunset. So with Leo, you're looking at this idea of a very masculine sign that is warm and dry. Its temperament is choleric, that is to say, it's very quick-tempered. It has correlations in the body to do with the heart, the circulatory system, and the spine, the back, is supported. It's very supportive. So in mythology, one looks to Leo as is known as Apollo. Leo is the god Apollo. And his full name is Phoebus Apollo. That's Phoebus, Phoebus Apollo. And it is known as the defender, the bright one, the Lord, and the giver of life. It is the heart and the center of the solar system from the heliocentric viewpoint, which it is. That's what science tells us, and that's the truth of it. The type and the symbol of Leo looks like a lion's tail or a flick of a tail. It's a powerful sign. It's a companion and leader of the muses, so it's very creative. And it's the oracle of poets and musicians. Again, the source of creativity, because the light brings through, shines, if you like, or radiates. So in the Christian religion, they hail the Christ as the Son of the soul. It's the S-U-N, but it's the S-O-N as well. And that's why the Christ is pictured with a halo around the head, the glowing halo, or the sense of the, and in a way, that's why in the Christian religion, they have the winter solstice, which is the rebirth of the sun, the shortest day of the year. That's the Christmas holidays, the shortest day. And so when the light starts to return, because the shortest day is around about December 21st, by December the 25th, the sun is starting to climb up in declination again, so that the light returns after having the autumn of, the going towards winter. Anyway, the light gets brighter, more sunlight. And the other major Christian holiday being Easter, which is just coming up now. And that is, of course, associated with the equinox and the rising of the sun, again, from days getting longer. So it's again another sort of sense of a resurrection, if you like, this time over the horizon or the equinox, equal day and equal night. So the Leo is often depicted as very young and handsome. That's its kind of archetype, with flowing golden curls, often holding a sword, or maybe the scales of justice. It's in ancient times, if one stood before the statue of Apollo, one would naturally feel to straighten oneself up and lift up your shoulders and feel the sense of the power of Apollo flowing through you. And so that one would gain one's full stature. And the idea is, when you have people with planets in Leo, they have that sort of inbuilt confidence about them. They are people who are very good at harnessing and utilizing things for a creative purpose. They are often the people who provide a lot of spiritual fuel in their path for self-realization. So they are the sort of they can have a very strong effect on their fellow men, on their fellow people. So they can be like a sort of confidence boosters. They make good captains or good team leaders. Again, this idea of the king or the president, because they have that innate sense of inner strength of the light, that their ruling planet being the sun. So they shine outwards like that. And so they're good for having helping people develop themselves morally and mentally, as well as physically. So they have Leos tend to have a lot of faith and trust in humanity, This is very important to them, and people that Leos like to think that people are going to do their best, and a lot of people look up to them. And depending on what planet is, what planets they have in the signs and how those planets are aspected, and where they are in the chart, but people tend to be inspired by Leos. That fieriness, that fiery quality. And so they make good, leaders of enterprises, institutions, and things like that. They tend to be very good and successful at organizing things and distributing things. So in a way, they are like they can have good specialities and things like that. The Leo wants to be creative with its life, so it wants to find something that it can be creative with, and then it can be find the greatest possible amount of self-expression and admiration. Leos need their admiration. They like people to give them good words that help encourage them, but that they like to be able to generate a dignified sense of attention from others, so they are the sort of, again, this idea of creativity is very strong. So it is the idea that they can be very a sense of the glow, or the strength is in the glow sometimes, the radiant qualities of Leo. And they like to experience a lot of joy through playing and having fun. That you can always find a Leo probably at the center of the party, pretty much. And they're good with entertainment, good with drama. So you get a lot of people with planets in Leo doing acting, or being on the stage, or in films or television, or wherever they can show off. It's quite natural qualities for Leo to show off, and it depends how much humility they have. If they don't let that bit shine, they either play themselves down if they're very self-aware, but they tend to want to open their heart outwards into life, and be like, express that inward spiritual generosity that they're gifted with by being born when the sun is in that sign, or other planets. So that's very much, they like to be they emotionally, they can be very over generous and quite widespread in their emotion and their expression of feelings. And that faith in human nature can result in misplaced affections and unwise friendships. So sometimes you get Leos who get burnt, or by going too far, or putting their trust into too many people. And this results in heartaches, particularly for the Leo, broken engagements, unhappy marriages. But on the other hand, their inborn magnanimity and their ability to forgive is such that the Leo adjusts themselves to the conditions, and tends to bring success out of failure by the sheer act of faith. And again, you see Leos are the sort of character who maybe would get married, and then they stay fixed and they don't want to change, because there's a certain amount of foundation being built with that. There's a certain solidity to that. It's the fixity of Leo is the middle of the summer season. So the summer starts with the crab, which we did last time. The summer ends with Virgo, which we're going to do next time. And in the middle is Leo. It's the fixed sign. And when you think of spring, which we covered already, Aries starts the spring, Taurus fixes the middle of the season, and Gemini finishes the season. So there's the idea of fixity. A season doesn't change in the middle. It has a beginning where it builds up, it has a middle that doesn't change, and it has an ending where it's preparing to change to the next season. So the idea of fixity is that's the similarities that Leo has with Taurus. So this idea is about sustaining and nurturing. Taurus would nurture through its Venusian qualities, whereas Leo would nurture through its sun or soul qualities. So there's a sense of Leo being the real life force of something. Now, we've all got bits of Leo in our chart because we've all got a house, as you will see. We all have parts of the zodiac in ourselves, right? All 12 signs are represented in different areas of life, and that's what we will develop as you get further into the chart. But specific planets and different points falling into Leo will really bring about the person. You'll notice it more in the personality and character. So Leos like to enjoy life. They like to have a lot of recreation. They can sit on their loins and be very lazy, like a king might be, sits on its throne. Oh, whatever, yes, I want that to happen and that to happen. And they don't necessarily lift a finger. They can be very lazy, which is one of their downfalls. But it's not necessarily that bad. It's just how they can be. And so in a way, they are the sort of people who have a lot of zest, or hearty, benevolent. They are humorous, and they can be very generous. They tend to be quite passionate and cheerful. But on the other hand, they can also be boasters, and they can be dependent on constant admiration. Why are you not looking at me? A Leo might say, you might hear an unevolved Leo saying, or something like needing confirmation from others, or having that very embarrassing Lord and Master behavior, where they really do look down their noses at people. And that's really not, it's not good Leoness, to be like that. So sometimes their passions are only short-lived, and sometimes emotional sympathy is reduced right down because they're very solar, they are very light-bearing, and they actually want things to focus on themselves quite a lot. Naturally, it's just a natural inclination. And in fact, actually, sometimes Leos can be quite the narcissist, but I'm not doing psychology today. But they have a lot of leadership tasks that require a lot of prestige and demand self-confidence or self-initiative. They are, as I said, they can have that quest for personal glory. Depends how that's delivered to people. Sometimes it's done well, sometimes it's done not so well. And they tend to be, let's look at more of the idea of what kingship is, or royalty. The British royal family, for example, have a lot of Leo planets. Okay, tend to be spread out amongst them. The Queen, our current Queen Elizabeth II, has the moon in Leo. She has the sun in Taurus, which is why she's stuck at it for so many years. But she's also double fixed because she's got the moon in Leo. So she's also got the fixity of the moon as well. So that's why she's austere, stands back. She's like very prim and proper, and it's that kind of rigidity, actually, that sun in Taurus, moon in Leo. I mean, very fixed. Prince Charles has his ascendant or his rising sign in Leo, and he has Pluto in the first house on his ascendant, which is why people, can't stand him, or some people like him, some people don't like him, but it's the idea that he is also very Leo. And you'll find Leo appearing a lot in things like people who are presidents. I mean, I've got a few. I've got some great charts to show you tonight. So you'll be seeing all sorts of different charts, and there's one or two presidents in there. In fact, 2 presidents in there. But you'll see, because they are very good statesmen. So the Leo takes that role, happily stands upon the lectern, to speak out loud and be very confident in their approach and their delivery of things. That's very Leo as well. So they make good public speakers and good debaters and orators. But that generally speaking, they like to be sort of pretty much tend towards a sort of center of attention. Although saying that, sometimes you'll get a lot of, like a 12th house Leo, might aspire to be glorious, and everything they do doesn't work the way they hope to. And having done many charts in my lifetime, I can think of 1 or 2. I would like to tell you some stories about them sometimes, but, and then sometimes there might be Leos with lots of planets in their 1st house, and still, would feel that maybe that, life could be better. But they have, anyway, but and I'm laughing there a bit because I'm actually a Leo. So when I talk to you, then and I've got Mercury in Leo with the Sun and Jupiter. And Jupiter's like the philosopher or the teacher. Mercury is the speaker, and I have Sun in Leo as well. So I'm what you're looking at here is a Leo talking to you in a very Leo kind of way, I guess. So you get that kind of idea. It's that kind of and I've always I identify with the astrology with my Sun, Jupiter, and things. And yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And they're good singers as well. They like to be on the stage, and and they're good at performance. Yeah, Leo is great at performance, and of course, it doesn't. It's any planets in Leo. So Moon in Leo, for example, is a natural performer. People might not be a Leo sun sign, but they might have the Moon in Leo. You see. And that gets them really noticed. I mean, you get a lot of people and you think, how did that person make it up, like they did, and it's often, Moon in Leo or something like that, that gets them up there, you see. So it's that natural sense of they have a big overall perspective of things, Leos. They tend to see the big picture in a fiery kind of way. They are very optimistic, and they like to do decisive action. So they'll say, right then, that I can see what's going to be done. I've got to do that, and that's how they'll act on something. The Leo is really good with showmanship, with self-confidence, and encourages and motivates other people. Often, a Leo carries the torch. Doesn't necessarily make to be the famous person, as it were, or the person who's really noticed, like the careerist or something like that. But they'll be carrying a torch for others to follow. Others will be inspired by them and then go on to great things. And that is often the case of Leo. So what you might find is that it's the proteges of Leos end up, and the Leo then says, yes, you see, I told you need to get on stage, and they do it, and then it becomes something bigger and greater. And the Leo then has to, go, well, I've got that person up there, or, and that's a reward in itself. So, there's a sense of being, they quite like the idea of the generous gesture, So you often get a Leo using their hands and arms and, expansive and outgoing. And, they like to give their love to the world. That's a very Leo thing. And so, they are often being very expressive like that. So Leos tend to be in physicality, or the manifestation, should we say. They have a commanding presence. You can usually spot them a mile off once you tune into them. And as you'll see in these charts, you'll probably you'll recognize the Leo archetype quite strongly. And they have a stateliness of bearing. They have quite a lot of deliberation in speech and movement. So it's you can see them. They tend to stand out, their body tends to be quite symmetrical. The limbs tend to be well proportioned. The step is firm yet light. The stride is longer than average. They are potentially very good dancers. They are inclined to be stout. They like a good life. And they tend to be quite heavy or Roman looking. And then you can see the feline qualities sometimes of a Leo as well. So they tend to have a very thick hair and arched eyebrows. The eyes tend to be quite large and round, and so that's a country that has a lot of Leo is Italy. They're very big with their Leo. They have it's very the god Apollo was worshipped there for millennia. So it has places like Tuscany, Pisa, Florence. These are very Leo. The Renaissance, it's a very Leo place. France is very Leo as well. England is not very Leo, actually. England has an Aries ascendant, and it doesn't have that much of a Leo character in it. England's actually very Capricorn, is a very Capricorn nation. And through and through, this is the hierarchy and the structure. But we'll do these other times. We'll do this another time. Every country has Leo, or not has different characteristics that can be seen by the birth of the country, basically. So, but Italy, super Leo, very dramatic, very expressive, outgoing, and France also the same. So they tend to be, you tend to see them a lot in fiction, big leonine characters, and they tend to be, classic sort of, very, very front and forward characters, quite boisterous, loud, brash, so they tend to be, they can suffer health-wise from things like rheumatism, or they can get quite strong fevers and things in health-wise. Of course, it's back problems is Leo. Very strongly, heart problems, because they're the parts of the body that it rules. But a Leo often has a bad back, is often the case, and so they need to have some attention put onto them when they're feeling a bit achy, and it reminds me of the idea of the lion with its paw. Oh no, look, I've got my paw. It's been, and yet behind the paw is, there's loads of strength actually there, but they have that kind of, that sense of wanting to gain attention. They're quite good at that. So there's some Leo ideas for you, Leo concepts, and how Leo is, and you've got your handout sheet. So I'm going to go now across to the charts for today, and we have a nice little selection for you. So I have picked out what I think are some really good ones. So we have our first chart. Can you all see a chart? Hopefully you can see. We've got Barbara Windsor as our first chart from the Carry On films. Quite boisterous, quite a sunny, bright character. She has the sun and the moon conjunct together in Leo in her 10th house. So she was always destined to be noticed in the way that so she was very bubbly, fun. It's a fiery character she has, very fiery character. And she also ended up, her most famous role, apart from Carry On, was that she was the landlady of the Queen Vic, the pub. So, of course, character takes on the role of the Queen, like a royalty. And she ruled Albert Square. And as it were, she had a very strong character there. So her Leo, sun, moon in Leo shone through as that very long-standing role as a landlady of a pub called the Queen Victoria, which I think is quite funny. So that's our first chart, Barbara Windsor. We have Martin Sheen, he of Apocalypse Now, who was the war movie. So he has the sun widely conjunct Pluto with the moon and Mars. So, of course, acting in a war film role would be Mars, but Pluto also very Vietnam. And he's very strong, powerful roles he has played. But the one that really shines through is the Apocalypse Now. And Pluto is known as, it could be called the Apocalypse Planet. And so with the sun and Pluto, the sun is quite close to Pluto there. So it's a very volcanic sort of characters that he can play. This is an interesting chart that I found in my database that I wasn't expecting to find. This is the date, and I can't remember when I recorded this, but I found it somewhere, that the first CDs were created, the first compact discs, and the date being the 17th of August 1982 in Hanover in Germany. So that's where the invention was created, and it's Sun in Leo with the Moon and Venus. Venus being something of value, and what I quite like about this, of course, is the Moon rules silver. Okay, and yet when you held the CD up to the light, when you got light on it, it would be multicolored, all these flashing kind of, or the whole spectrum. And, it was a disc, like the sun is a disc, when we look up at the sun in the sky, it's a disc. That's what we're looking at. And so the Leo sun disc with the moon, silver, Venus, which is the value of them, because they were valued things. Here's a little plastic disc. It contains an hour of music or other information, and it's extremely valuable, right? Because it could have all sorts of things on there, like it's a valuable item. It can be, So those three planets in Leo, beautifully placed, just by chance. But that shows you that, things are being created all the time, and how the astrology runs alongside inventions and creations and all sorts of things. The astrology is creating these things, but it is also the sort of can be correlated with it. So I thought that was quite an interesting chart. It's not necessarily someone, but it's an object, and I thought that was quite interesting. We've got Patrick Swayze, the Dirty Dancing, other great movies. Look at the amount of planets in Leo. The moon at 3 degrees, Mercury at 15, Pluto at 21, the South Node at 21, and the sun at 25. So this is the guy who did, I think, the film Dirty Dancing, and he was in Ghost, big with romance, very Leo, a lot of focus on being the archetypal Leo symbol. I think a lot of people had a thing about his hair, various things that he was very noted for. He had quite an unfortunate thing with his health. He has this, sun with the South Node and Pluto. Eventually, that tended to show that was going to be a difficult outcome for him. Sun square Mars as well, Dirty Dancing. So there's the dancer would be the sun, but Mars it's got, there's a sense of that kind of, and the sun with Jupiter there, quite a lot of powerful in expression So, he had a lot of forceful characteristics that got him front and forward and got him noticed in Hollywood. And so you have to have a lot of strength to tackle these sort of careers. And there, as you can see, there was plenty of strength. Another Leo is David Walliams of the Little Britain fame. Now, he has got the moon in Leo, the Venus and the sun in Leo. He is now doing children's books, and he's made a fortune from children's books. Of course, he made his fortune from comedy, selling the DVDs as they do. Comedians do their live shows, and then they sell millions of DVDs. So that's how they make a lot of their money afterwards. But he has the 3 planets in Leo, and now he has best-selling children's books. And he's being touted these days as the person who takes over from Roald Dahl. So the Roald Dahl books are going to be, as his books will take over. That's what people are saying anyway. So, but the Leo, of course, is the inner child, because it's the 5th sign of the zodiac. It is to do with procreation. Leos tend to be very strong with their idea of procreation, although saying that, there's a lot of other things to say about that with Leo, because they can also be called a barren sign in traditional astrology, which means they only really focus on themselves and they don't really focus on their offspring, but they are very good at procreation. So it's an interesting kind of situation there. So sometimes Leos only have one child, and rather than maybe lots and lots of children. Depends what's going on in the chart, of course, but it can be that's how that works. But the Sun, Venus, and moon together, this would be the strong kind of the idea of the strong inner child. And there's a part of David Walliams that's extremely immature. It's how he makes his comedy, and so you can see it. That there's that kind of that sort of inner child part of quality that he has, which is silly jokes and various things, giggly kind of schoolyard humor. Another very, very interesting Leo is Fidel Castro, the revolutionary dictator who overtook Cuba with the Bay of Pigs in the 1950s with Che Guevara, and Fidel Castro, of course, is an idealist with his sun in Leo and Neptune. So this is the dreamer, the fantasist, and his Leo is Mercury in Leo as well. But everything was big with him. So he was big guy on a small island. And he liked his dressing up in his big military uniforms with all the ribbons and the stars. He liked smoking his big cigars, and he liked being a big character, which was very him. It was that hugely Leo thing, but it was all a little bit mystical, not quite real, kind of slightly fantastical. And he liked causing a lot of trouble for America, like with his big statements and various things like that. So he was always like, being the communist against the capitalist America, and therefore, and in a way, it was just him being him. There's quite a lot in that chart that's worth looking at another time. But just that Sun Neptune is almost enough there to know that he had a slightly a big imagination of himself. Now we come to Fidel Castro was actually a sort of dictator or a president of his own way, but the one that really a real classic here is Barack Obama, who's totally Leo, with his Mercury, his Sun in Leo, Mercury in Leo, and Uranus and the North Node in Leo, and his descendant. So he was very showy with his relationship. He put his wife and his daughters very front and forward in his part of his life. They always played a big role as he was the president. But it was the statesman. It's the statesman qualities. He could stand up and he could say really good things to people that people really enjoyed, People liked listening to his voice. They liked tuning into him, and they liked to understand what he was saying. You know, he always tried to come across with a lot of clarity, a lot of comprehension, and he was a hero for the people of America. And he turned up at exactly the right time. Funnily enough, he was overtaken by Donald Trump, who was a Mars in Leo. Donald Trump actually has Mars at the very end of Leo with his ascendant. So Donald Trump and the first book that got published about Donald Trump was called The Fire and the Fury. I remember seeing this book published a couple of months after he became president. And I was thinking about it like, that's so Mars on the ascendant, because Donald Trump had Mars in Leo. So that's why he had the orange, or remember the color orange? He was orange everything. He had orange skin. He had that kind of orangey hair. There were photographs of him in a gold apartment. How he had a whole part in his Trump Tower. He had a whole apartment in gold. I mean, this is a Leo ascendant with a Pluto, by the way. He had Pluto in Leo as well, and Saturn, you know, and Mars. So he had 3 malefic planets in Leo. So he was a very challenging. He had leonine qualities like Barack Obama, but they were challenging planets. Mars and Saturn in Leo are malefics, both known as malefic planets. And the lesser malefic is Mars, the greater malefic is Saturn. Saturn is in its detriment in Leo. Saturn does not do well in Leo because it rules Aquarius, which is opposite to Leo. We'll cover this later when we do dignities. But so you got the statesman of Barack Obama, closely followed by the upsetting planets in Leo of Donald Trump. And as you know, they clashed strongly, particularly over birth certificates, which is interesting. But Bill Clinton is another American president, another great, potentially very good spokesperson. He has the Saturn there, Mercury with Saturn and Pluto. So sometimes he wasn't quite as statesman-like as Barack Obama. With the Mercury Pluto, is a little bit more hypnotic, a little bit more seductive even, and of course he was known to be that. Sun in Leo, Mercury Pluto, so the power is in the ideas, the way he would speak to people, and Saturn kept him in check as well. And in a way that was he was, a very interesting presidency. He was popular because of all his Libra stuff, but that something about that was. I mean, next time you hear him speak, or if you listen to one of his old, something on YouTube or something, think of the Saturn, Mercury, Pluto, in the voice, and you'll hear it. Saturn being cold, right? Pluto being hypnotic, slightly cold and hypnotic, but with a bit of warmth of the Leo as well, a bit sunny. Quite interesting character. Yes. Well, David Koresh of Waco in Texas, the cult leader. So, of course, a cult leader. Well, Uranus and the Sun. Yes. Well, probably very likely. Uranus, Sun in Leo. Do as I do, and let's make it really crazy. Or let's be wacko, or well, that's where they lived. But he had the Branch Davidians, I think, what they called themselves, if I remember correctly. He had a very extreme religious thing, and actually, it was all focused around him being a cult. So Leos can often get a lot of people focusing on them. And he probably demanded that quite a lot with Sun Uranus there, but also at the same time being very divisive, or, he has Sun actually opposite the moon and Uranus opposite the moon. So there may have been that, he had quite a lot of challenges there. Sun squared Jupiter, so that would his faith would have been involved faith. So that's an interesting character. And he had a big standout, fixed to the very end. The FBI were throwing in missiles and grenades and all sorts of stuff, and he wouldn't budge. He wasn't going to move. So that was a fixity. He stuck it out to the end. The shootout, if you like. Talking about shootouts, actually, here's another Leo who was, I remember, in that Ned Kelly movie back in the early 1970s. One of the first things he did after the 60s was he did a movie called Ned Kelly. And I don't know whether Ned Kelly was a Leo, but Mick Jagger certainly played the Leo. And that was another shootout character, that sort of fixity again, sticking out to the end. Of course, Mick Jagger is a singer. And look at all the planets here in Leo, how he holds the stage and entertains people. But he's very lithe and quite wiry, and Saturn in the first house in Gemini, with the ascendant there. So he's not actually, but he has a larger than life quality about him. And his charisma is, of course, huge. If he walks out into the room or down the street or wherever, into the hotel or wherever he is, he's like, people like, he turns heads. In fact, actually, Carly Simon wrote the song "You're So Vain" after Mick Jagger. And there's a line in it that says, you're walking down the hotel corridor and you look at yourself in the mirror as you're walking down the corridor. That's always the bit I remember. I thought that was hilarious. It's a brilliant line, how he used to look at himself. She wrote the song about him. And so there's a good song for Leos to listen to, is "You're So Vain" by Carly Simon. The lyrics in it are absolutely choice for that kind of overly Leo qualities. And so Mick Jagger, I mean, you don't have to look at him to see the Leoness, and it's very feline, the feline qualities, and of course the regal qualities. Now, I didn't actually do much look up on Charlize Theron, but I can't remember the film she's been in, to be honest, but I plucked her out of the database because she is a Sun, Moon, and Mercury in Leo. But I can't quite off the top of my head remember the films she's been in. But I thought there was an interesting character. And there you go. So I didn't quite catch up on Charlize Theron today. But I do have an excellent one here, which is a real classic. More Leo than Leo is Jerry Halliwell of the Spice Girls, an absolute classic example of a Leo. I mean, she stood out amongst all the others. She was more Leo than the rest of them. So, and she's got the Mars in Leo, you see. So she had a very strong animus, and I'm getting some chat. In a minute. Thank you. So are these names of the films, Devil's Advocate and Monster? Are they Charlize Theron films? Yeah, thank you. So that's two of her films that she's been in. Yeah, absolutely. And Fast and Furious. Right. Well, that would be perfect. That would be chase movies, action, like, quite Leo. But I mean, I haven't seen any of those films actually, so I can't really talk about them, But you get the idea, right? Because that's that action-based movie character. But Jerry Halliwell there, on stage, loves the world revolving around her, with her Sun and Mercury and Mars all together in Leo. I mean, how more perfect than that? Very, very Leo. And you can see the feline qualities. You can see that sort of slight regalness, very strong confidence, lots of enthusiasm, very proud, loves to be the center of attention and always in the limelight. So, that is, in fact, those Spice Girls all have a very strong fiery planets. Victoria Beckham is an Aries. And I think Mel B is a Leo as well, I believe. But yeah, I think they all had very strong fiery planets. But she's a great example. And then we've got Iman, who is David Bowie's wife. She was the very tall and slim model that David Bowie married. And I'm going to show you his chart in a minute as well, just so you can see probably how the perfect synastry that they had, or not perfect, but very good synastry. She had the Sun at 1 degree Leo, the Jupiter at 8, Mars at 8, Pluto at 25. So this is, let me just show you that. So just remember the 1 degree and then the 8 and the 8, because I'll show you David Bowie's chart. And he has his descendant at 3 degrees of Leo and the moon at 3 degrees. So, of course, Iman's sun falls on his descendant. And then her Mars and Jupiter are very close to his Saturn and his Pluto. So the Mars to Pluto would have been a very strong, very powerful union for them both. Strong attraction, and her Leo planets falling in his 7th house. But while we're on David Bowie, of course, this is Mr. Sirius Moonlight, because he did his tour called Sirius Moonlight. Saturn is Sirius and the moon. And he was doing big drama, on his shows. That tour was one of his most famous tours, and it was called Sirius Moonlight. And he did it when there was a big transit going through Leo as well, I believe. And so that's, he called his tour that particular thing. Lots of different things, lots of Ziggy Stardust in here, all sorts of really amazing. He used astrology a lot, and it's well known that his producer for all those years, Tony Visconti, is an astrologer who really enjoys astrology and actually has written about it and talks about it and does other celebrities' charts in New York. So he's quite big on the music scene and astrology, Tony Visconti. Anyway, and then we have 2 more Leos to show you. I think I'll start with James Corden, who sings along with people in the car. And it's the singing along is the very Leo bit, right? Because he actually wants to outshine the star he's got in the passenger seat. And that's probably a very annoying quality about him, like overly so. And people love it. It's funny because he's funny, but the way he outsings people is a bit too much Leo sunshine there. And personally, I think, I don't know, but I would say that. And all the planets in Libra is the next door seat. He relates. He's very good at relating to celebrities. So he gets very friendly with them, but he tries to outsing Leo. So, and then we've got Robert Plant, of course, the singer, probably one of the greatest singers, blues, rock, Led Zeppelin, Sun conjunct Saturn, works very hard at what he did. He worked really hard. The 10 years that Zeppelin were doing stuff was 10 very, very hard-working years. I don't think they stopped for 10 years. And there's a lot of symbolism with Zeppelin, Zoso and stuff. You can see the Saturn symbol in the Zoso symbol and various things. Robert Smith lost one of his sons. He had a son, a Leo, who died in a car accident. Very sad, very, very sad. And so son Saturn, is that kind of thing. He he still works very hard. I think he's always putting an album out every year, pretty much. And so it's the Sun Saturn. You see, it's the working hard at the creativity. And so there's a Sun Saturn example, you know. And there we go. So when you're out looking at the way that the seasons develop over the year, the idea of Leo, of course, is the hot summer sun. It's warm and dry, you know, and that's the nature of the sunshine. It's strong, it's bright. The evenings are long, the day is long, and it's very hot, and it's sultry, sultan. The idea of SUL and SOL being very Leo kind of words or sun-based words. It's the sultana, but you know, dried in the sun. So you know, it's that kind of quality. And what happens is the energy is fixed because the plants that have been growing start to produce the fruit on the branches. So it's been growing up, as you know, as I've been following it through with you each month, the plant develops. And when you get to Leo, the fruit is developing, you know, it puts out, you know, the little flower that's got the seeds in it. And that's the Leo symbol as well. But the idea is that the fruit is fixed on the branch because the energy is clustering and growing in that area. So it's like an apple in an apple tree, you know, the apple is growing and growing and growing. And that's fixed energy because it's the energy staying in one place. It's not moving around as sap in the tree. It's staying in one place and it's growing. So it has a fixed quality to it. And yes. Well, I think with Leo, then you're looking at radiance, R-A-D. Okay, so radiator has warmth and heat coming off of it, but it's actually a metal object with, you know, with water in it. So, but it's called a radiator because it has heat. I think red is an orange. We know, looked at orange, didn't we? So anything to do with royalty, to do with monarchy, will be centrally focused. Any words, or you know, so maybe the word arch or arc, the MON as well, possibly, and so you'd be looking at things like that. So the key to the etymology, so that you can do it yourself, is you look at the best keywords of the sign. Okay, so the ones that you really, so on your fact sheets, I've picked, and you know, you got some really good keywords there, right? So you just go into those and then type into the etymology, online etymology dictionary, type the word in, and then start looking, and you'll see. Then it starts to relate lots of words, and words pop out that you hadn't thought of, but you'll see how they all link together. So you know, it's things like that. And then think of it in terms of nature. Think of it in terms of what that sign is doing in the course of the year. For more information on that. But sometimes there'll be keywords, you know, that I mean, creative, I think is you know, would be an interesting word. You know, because well, in the Bible you got the creation, you know, the beginning of something, which is light. In the beginning there was the light separated the darkness, or, you know, the light. So it was, and so that would be a kind of creation, creative kind of thing, which is associated to Leo. You know, many things like that. Maybe there might be admiration, possibly admiral, you know, very top level leader, military leader or something, you know, but admiration, or expression, you know, things like that. So but LUC, right, and LUX in Latin, lux and lucere, LUCERE, is light. So lux and Leos like to be luxurious, right? And lucid is a form of clarity, isn't it? So you start to see that, and so to be clarity, maybe things need to be light or clear, you know. So you know, there's definitely, you know, put in LUX dash into the online etymology dictionary, or put in LUC, yeah, and you'll see there's a lots of stuff comes up that's related to that. And that is actually Lucifer, but you see, all stars are light as well. Some of them, the sun's light, of course, is eternal and everlasting, and we are actually bathed in heavenly light all the time. You know, it's dark now, right now, outside, but here we are in the UK, and it's dark because the planet has spun, and we're on the far side from the sun's light at the moment. But the sun is always, the sun's always doing its light. It never stops, and so in the morning, our planet would have spun far enough around, and we'll have a sunrise, and we get back to the light again. So it's our eternal experience of experiencing darkness and light by the rotation of our planet, whereas the light is constantly bathing. The light is going over the planet all the time, constantly, eternally. That's very magical. It's just such a deep thing there that's so far out, you know, that the actual universe is very light. The heavens are all lit up, but it's only because we spun around on the far side that we just see a darkness. It's like the shadow, you know. When we look into the night sky, what we're seeing is shadow because we're on the far side. Darkness is just big on the other side. Otherwise, we'd be in the light all the time. So far out. I'll leave you with that deep thinking concept. I hope you enjoyed tonight's lesson, everybody.